4 p.m. Ottawa City Commission study session. We'll start with public comments. Do we have any today?
We do. We have on the first item.
Okay, do we have anybody that doesn't want to speak on any item in particular? Okay, I'll just call you up when we get to that item then. So that'll move us on to items to be placed on a regular City Commission agenda, which is our minutes from our May 23rd study session, or June 6th study session, June 13th study session, and the reappointment of a board member, Lucinda Cox, to the Board of Zoning and Appeals. Commissioners, are you okay with moving that on to our agenda? All right, we'll do that. That'll move us on to items for presentation and discussion. Item 1 is a conditional use permit request for construction of a duplex at 809 South Willow in an R1 low-density residential district. Director Hall, come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commission. Okay. So this is an application by Wyatt and Detention for a conditional use permit for a duplex, 809 South Willow. And there's a report in your packet. So the slides aren't advancing, but I can give you a summary. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So this is on a site that's 14,000 square feet, 14,375 square feet to be exact. 809 South Willow, the current zoning is R1. In an R1 residential district, a duplex requires a conditional use permit. And so we received this application for a conditional use permit. The lot's been vacant for a long time. There are utilities to serve the site, and the surrounding land uses are all single family residential. There is a school about, it's not right adjacent to it, but it's on the north side of 8th Street. This is the vicinity map showing you the location. This is the proposed duplex. There's a photo on the right of an existing duplex. And this might be the duplex that was built at 715, South Pecan, which also required a conditional use permit, and that was approved. Go back to the, on the right is the site plan. The duplex meets all required building setbacks. It exceeds them. The minimum side setbacks are 6 feet. It is over 12 feet. It meets the front setback of 20, the large backyard, as you can see. Parking, for single family and duplexes, each unit is required to have 2 off-street parking spaces. This duplex has 2 off-street parking spaces, 2 per unit. It's set back from the edge of the roadway. The right-of-way is set back from the edge of the roadway, giving a little bit more space. There's a sidewalk there. There isn't a lot of room to park on the street, and that was one of the issues that was raised. So staff in the report recommended the Planning Commission approval. The Planning Commission recommendation, they voted 4-1 to reject findings 2, 6, and 7 in the report, and to not approve the conditional use permit. The key finding here is the proposed use compatible to other land uses in the surrounding neighborhood? There's a lot of discussion by the Planning Commission as to what compatible should mean, and that's an ongoing debate, I suppose. A lot of the finding that staff recommended rested on the design of the duplex. It has a nice design, it has garages, it has a front porch. A use by right, a single family dwelling, which is a use permitted by right at this location, would not be required to have an enclosed garage. It would not be required to have, say, a front porch. It's a use by right. There aren't really any conditions other than meeting parking standards and setbacks and height and things like that, and parking. So the Planning Commission rejected that particular finding that was recommended by staff. 6 is the property suitable for the proposed use. Planning Commission said it isn't, mainly because of finding number 2. And staff did recommend approval. Planning Commission is recommending to not approve. So some of the concerns raised by the people who testified at the public hearing is that the duplex is out of character with the neighborhood, as the entire block consists of detached single-family homes. There could be a detrimental effect on stormwater drainage along a street that already experiences a lot of drainage issues, apparently. A duplex with a setback of 12 feet from the side property line is not suitable, and insufficient off-street parking for the duplex resulting in excessive parking on the street, and the potential for parking from the duplex. So the duplex units, the dwellings are 3 bedroom, 2 bath units. And so there is potential for number of residents. One thing that I'll point out is if you were to increase the width of the driveway to accommodate more parking laterally, that would make it more difficult to provide excessive parking on the street. So that's potentially more out of character with the surrounding area. There might be other ways to add parking. So the other thing that I want to point out is the city has approved conditional use permits for 4 duplexes within the past 4 years. One of them, not the past 4 years, the past 2 years. One of them was the one on Pecan, a couple blocks over, and another one on, actually there are 2 on Pecan, one on 834 South Pecan and one on 715 South Pecan. Those were approved. The one on 715 South Pecan was approved with conditions mainly related to parking. The applicant, I believe, is here to comment, and others are here to comment as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Do you want to mention the protest petition that was filed?
Thank you. Yes, we did receive a protest petitions today.
Thank you.
The way the protest petition works is there are 14 days within the date of the decision by the Planning Commission to file a protest. If the protest petitions represent 20% of the land inside the notification area, if it represents 20% or more, then it raises the bar for the city commission to approve. And it goes to a 3/4 majority vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Director Hall?
Is there any parking in the back of this?
No, not as proposed.
I don't think they can even access parking, could they?
I think it's easement, right? Easement behind, no alley.
There's an easement without an alley.
Right.
A lot of alleys in this area, so, but in this particular case, there's no alley. There's no alley access. There is a utility easement on the rear.
And 3/4 approval would require 4-to-1 vote at a minimum among us, right?
Yes.
It's not exactly, okay.
Just like.
On the plan, is it for the duplex, are they 2 bedrooms or 3?
They're 3 bedrooms.
So 6 parking spots total is the
So
requirement for this?
it's 2 per dwelling.
Okay.
So regardless of the number of bedrooms, the requirement is 2 per dwelling.
Any other questions for Director Hall? Okay. Would the applicant like to come up?
Yeah. Sit here.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please state your name.
Slade, Vandevenner, Wyatt's my son.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, how we doing?
Good.
Good. So I'd love to answer any questions you might have. I do want to clarify a couple things. It is a single family attached that I'm asking for the conditional use permit for. And as opposed to duplex, it's going to be built as a single family attached split. I mean, it's going to be split. It could be sold separately, could always just be kept and rented, but it has the ability to be divided off and sold separately. Also, I don't have them with me today, but I'm gonna get you guys some pictures of all the houses on the 700 and 800 block of South Willow. Because I mean, I can tell you what the neighborhood's like, the neighbors can tell you what the neighborhood's like, but there's nothing like you just seeing, okay, this is the neighborhood we're talking about. So I think that's important. And I'd love for you guys all to drive down that block and just take a look and think with this in mind, like this is the neighborhood we're talking about putting this in. Does it fit? Does it not? We weren't at the planning commission meeting. Honestly, I didn't think there was any need to be there. I've gotten 2, so 4 of those permits you talked about, 3 of them were ones that I got. 2 were on Pecan, 1 was on East Wilson on the north side. Exact same structure, the last one on Pecan, the one on Wilson, exact same structure we're talking about here. 5-0 approval. And I fail to see why, it's not suitable in this neighborhood on Willow, but for some reason it was on Pecan and East Wilson. So, most of the concerns have been brought up, have been things that, honestly, they could be more egregious for the neighbors, more displeasing with just an R1 single family. You could have a bigger house, more water runoff, you could have more bedrooms, you could have less parking spots. I mean, just like I said, used by right, you could build an 8-bedroom house, 2 parking spots. That's all that'd be required. And there wouldn't be any planning commission, city commission meeting about it. It's just used by right. So I don't, honestly, I don't need a conditional use to have 6 bedrooms. I don't need a conditional use for 2 parking spots per dwelling. I don't need a conditional use for water runoff. So I don't need a conditional use to be 12 foot from property line. It can be 6 foot, and that's all perfectly fine. So
6 feet is minimum.
6 foot is the minimum
and you're
amount.
12 and a half. Like
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that's brought up that's on slab instead of on a basement. It's like, you don't need a conditional use to be on slab. So I think the density thing is something like, it's a single family attached. So yeah, the density issue, but it's like, if the staff has reviewed this, that was within their requirements for density. I think that's most of the things I had to say for now anyway. Like I said, I do want to get you guys pictures so you can see the neighborhood just firsthand, so you can see if you think it fits with the character. Oh, another thing, there is a duplex 1 block north on Willow, on the 700 block of South Willow. So it's, 1 block away. So.
Well, that's what I live in next door to a duplex and one across the street from our house. And it was built in '95, and the duplex, I believe, were both built in 2000. And I guess I've never had an issue. They've been great neighbors. I couldn't tell any difference the way it was designed, that it looked like a house, but just had 2 front doors apart. I don't see the issue really with regard to how it could be a detriment to the neighborhood personally, but I've never had an issue with duplexes next door.
Yeah, I was totally blown away. I mean, I found out the next morning. Did you find out? Did you hear about this? Like, what? Are you kidding me? So then I went back and watched the planning commission meeting. And yeah, so then here we are. Any other questions you guys have for me?
What is your intent on the use? Is it to rent or to sell?
To rent.
To rent?
Yeah.
And you see it very similar to one that you built on.
It'd be exactly like that.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. And this, I think something was mentioned at the planning commission meeting also about being a detriment to their property values, which is just not true. This is a very expensive structure is being built. This isn't some cheap little thing you throw up. The only real concern I can see is that they might be concerned their property taxes are going to go up. But yeah, it actually will improve the value of the neighborhood as opposed to a vacant lot, But besides that, I don't see the complaint.
Commissioners, do you have any more questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else would like to come up and make a comment?
We have Clark,
Okay,
Ryan, Ray?
Ryan,
Ryan, okay.
come on up. State your name for us, please.
I'm Clark Ryan, and I live at 803 South Willow.
Thank you.
And I certainly was one of the folks that spoke at the CUP hearing. I like the way that he certainly downplayed the fact that it's still a duplex. Anyway, since the conditional use permit, I've been all up and down the block and spoke to all the residents there and have not found a single person that is in favor of the duplex for various reasons. And I certainly filed the protest petitions this morning with several more coming in the next couple of days. Now, if I understood the Planning Commission correctly, while we did bring up stormwater and parking, those were not issues that could necessarily play into the decision that they came to, which was against it. I guess to say the least, when we moved into that neighborhood, it is all single family homes. There's no duplexes there. The one at 7th and Willow that he mentioned is certainly quite a bit different, with rear parking, nothing in the beginning or nothing in the front. So certainly is quite a bit different than what is being proposed here. One of the big points we made at the hearing was that, that it's not in character with the neighborhood. And while, no duplex going to be in character with the neighborhood that's older like that. So, while a single family home is, can't be built to look like older homes, it is certainly quite a bit different than a duplex being in character with the neighborhood, that's for sure. But since the CUP hearing, I did happen to get to meet Wyatt Van Deventer one day passing by and talk to him for a little bit. And also a lot of the residents there, since the CUP hearing, we've had the chance to research a lot of the other duplexes that's been built. Come to find out, a lot of the duplexes are being rented by college kids that are occupied by as many as 2 people per bedroom, which can lead to around 12 people and vehicles associated with the property. That concern may not be part of the Development Commission, but I think they are legitimate and relevant to this meeting here. I did discuss similar concerns with Wyatt at that time, and the simple solution was to just build a much wider parking area, which would essentially put concrete from our family's property to the neighbor's property line, which that continues to not only push the duplex farther and farther outside the character of the neighborhood, but it certainly is less like anything we moved in to be around. May I continue? That would also lead to a lot more flooding concerns for our residents and the residents on the other side. I know that certainly stormwater was brought up by Mr. Hall. But the other duplexes in the area, also based on our research, are being flooded with similar residents because they're being built up, put on a slab, which is forcing water to each of the residents to the sides. We already have flooding in the backyard, which is certainly our own concern, but we don't need help from the neighbors to make it worse. That lot at 809 South Willow already has 2 drainage ditches to try to help alleviate some of those concerns. But the current design would most likely eliminate those from the property, along with the increased concrete would, cause more, like I said, more flooding. So as it stands, the current duplex is, in summary, outside of the neighborhood's character and would cause numerous legitimate concerns for existing and well-established residents in the community. With that, I'll consider my say done, so.
Commissioners, any questions for Clark?
Go ahead.
Well, just real quick about the water runoff, it would be the same with a slab or a basement house, right?
Potentially, I mean,
Because you got, there's no grass there, whether you got a basement or a slab. So does a slab create more runoff than a house with a basement, you're saying? I mean, I misunderstood that.
well, my understanding from all the folks that, around town, the slabs are being built by adding fill material that are raising that property up. And so, I mean, just natural gravity sloping to the side pushes that water on those impervious surfaces to the side, which is the neighbor's properties.
Okay, but it'd be a roof would do the same thing, whether it's the same size house, whether it's on a slab or a basement.
But the
Right.
basement wouldn't necessarily be built up on fill material.
Maybe, yeah, okay.
I mean, either way, you're speculating. I'm just basing it on the way the other homes are, that have been built similar to this. So.
Okay.
Similar homes would have grading so you don't get water in their own basement. You want to be higher at your foundation, so you would grade the water away regardless. So if it's on a foundation, it will sit higher, you'll have windows, and you grade away. So it would be the same situation on a basement.
I mean, you would think, I mean, but
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I mean,
And houses settle, that's why a lot of older homes have issues because they've settled. Grading a lot of times at a build slopes away from a home.
but I mean, you don't generally see homes with basements with slope up to the house and then have a basement below it.
You should.
I should, yeah, I want one.
Okay.
You should for a build because you want to push water away from any structure.
Right.
So any house, slab, or basement should have a proper grade away.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Sure,
I
you bet.
appreciate it. I appreciate your input. Is your thoughts and your concern about this build, is it about the fact that it has two completely separate different residences versus one residence? And what if this was a one residence or a single home? Do you have the same drainage issues? I mean, I think that's what I'm saying too.
I think we certainly could and would probably have the same drainage issues. I mean, but I don't have much say on a single family home, so, and I would hope that with a single family home, I mean, I think you mentioned like 12 bedrooms, and I mean, I don't think you're gonna fit that in that lot, but anyway, I would think that with a single family home, it would certainly allow a little bit more variation in positioning out there and that sort of thing, so.
I just have two questions. One, pretty much a clarification, actually. The reason it's not called a duplex is because of the possibility of selling. Yes, everybody would consider it a duplex, but it's built differently. That's why Mr. Van der Venter called it a single-family dwelling. I understand what you're saying. Everybody, quite honestly, it took me a little bit of time to say, hey, hold on, isn't it a duplex? It's just built differently. That's why it's considered that. And then the other comment is, quite frankly, if you know of 12 people living in a duplex, one side of a duplex, we need to know about that. Because we have an ordinance that states that you can have only 4 non-family members living in a property. So even if this was a 3-bedroom unit, they can only have 4 non-family members living there. So you can't have 12 college kids living there. I understand your concern, and it can be dealt with in the right ways. It's just, I know, I mean, if I was a college kid too a long time ago, I'd probably want to cram in there and save some money on rent too, but it's just not allowed here. So 2 of those things, that thing could easily be, if it happened, could easily be fixed, so.
So there is a means with the city, if to, I guess, I hate to put it this way, but to kick those folks out of the house in some, prioritization method to make it meet the 4-person or 4 non-family member rule? Is that what you're saying?
I'm correct, right? The ordinance states we can only allow 4 non-family members in in a dwelling.
No, I understand. I'm just asking, I mean, there's a lot of things that the ordinances say, but that doesn't mean they get enforced.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so, I mean, my question is that an action that's going to truly be enforced?
I believe if it was brought to our attention, it would certainly be enforced.
It has been brought to our attention over the years and it has been enforced.
Okay.
I assume that'd be something, if you saw this, you could bring to the city and report this. So it's not like we have to be out there watching. We would anticipate the neighborhood report that, just like they would a vicious animal.
And if I may state one more thing, I mean, I brought this up at the planning commission, but so that it's made known here, we've lived there for over 20 years, and I've tried to buy this lot 4 or 5 times in the past. And in doing so, talked to the city about either putting up an outbuilding or a fence, and every time it's pretty much been shot down as a no because of the need for access to a power pole that's at the back of the lot, which there is a utility easement to get there, but nonetheless, I was told no, and therefore have declined, purchasing it. So I will say, I mean, there is, on top of the reasons I indicated, a little bit of personal issue with, we couldn't buy it from the person who originally owned it because she had been denied the opportunity to put a duplex there, which was the whole reason she split the lot from our property before we bought it. Now that we, have tried to buy it back, we wanted to use it for an outbuilding or something else and was denied that. So it seems a little fishy, sketchy, however you want to put it, that now that there are certain programs in place that offer tax breaks and other things for builders to put these on the lots, that, we have a builder that's purchased the property when existing residents for 20 years with a true vested interest in the community, when I've been trying to buy it for that long and was unable to do so. I mean, it's a little bit of a personal issue there as well.
Well, I can't speak for any prior commissions. Certainly, if there was a conditional use permit that was asked by that applicant to build there, that's certainly their decision. So I can't speak for what they did, and I'm not understanding what you mean by the builder getting a tax break where anybody else wouldn't. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, there's programs for community development going on in certain residential areas and that sort of thing that are offering tax breaks. And my understanding is
Neighborhood revitalization?
Yes.
That's for everybody. Anybody who builds a house gets that tax break. And quite honestly, it probably won't even go, well, as long as he keeps it as a rental, it would be his tax break, correct? But if he were to sell one of those units, because it's an attached single-family dwelling,
I know
he no longer gets that tax break, yes. So, and I don't want the public to be confused about what you said about who actually gets that. It's not just offered up to him. It's offered up to a lot of homeowners that have built recently too, so.
Right.
Well, and easily, it could be offered up to you. I mean, if you choose to revitalize your house in a way that, that's certainly a tax break, so, yeah.
No, I understand.
So, but I understand what you're saying,
Sure.
that's
Right.
frustrating, but it's available to.
Sure. I don't want it to be glazed over with who gets the tax break when the issue is, or in my opinion, is the fact that we've offered to purchase that and was denied tax breaks for anything, which it's not about the tax break. It's the fact that we couldn't put anything there, period. And now we're to a different program or whatever that has provided this opportunity, and all of a sudden, something can be built there.
Can we look at the map? Can we, Mike, put the map up there again?
Paul?
You were denied tax?
Okay.
We've been
fine.
denied-
Sure.
Yes, tax incentives, we were denied the opportunity to build an outbuilding.
You can't be denied the tax incentives unless you make the application, and the
That's fine.
application, I've been on the neighborhood revitalization for years, and I've never seen an application from you, that I will recall.
Can you,
Yeah, I'm like, I've been on it for 12 years. I've never seen it in 12 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're
I'm like, hold on.
going down a different
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Well, I
here,
just
so-
want to make sure, because the public does watch this, and so I'm gonna back up what our mayor said too, because I've sat and I've reviewed lots, and I don't remember denying neighborhood revitalization.
There was no
Okay.
neighborhood revitalization application
Okay.
submitted. It was a
Okay.
simple conversation
Good.
because they wanted access to the pole and back. And I said, since you won't let me build anything there, I'll leave it blank. I'll give you guys access. If I'm doing that just because I don't want anything built there, can we either get a tax break or something? And I was told no. So no, there was no application or
Just want to
anything
make sure I
else.
understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, can someone show us where the easement is, where the power pole is? Where does power come in here?
Howard, so here, I guess I can use this. There's an easement that runs parallel with this property line.
North and south.
And how
South.
wide is
I
that
don't-
easement?
What's that?
How wide is that easement?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to research it. This is I think this is one of the older lots, so the easement's not necessarily platted. It's not on a subdivision plat. It's probably by instrument or by prescription, but it's a public utility easement.
Yeah, I'm curious about that information, about what the width of that easement is and how you get in there, because I don't understand that argument if that was made from our side.
Well,
I think there's a misunderstanding of what the easement does. First of all, I don't believe there's an easement that runs from.
there are no east and west.
East-west.
Right.
It's just running along the rear property line.
But the power is in back of the homes,
The
right?
power is my understanding.
Right.
My understanding is the power line runs north-south along the
Okay.
rear property line.
And with that easement, we would be granted rights to go in there at any time and do maintenance or repairs.
I believe that's correct. I think we might have to come in from this side. I don't know.
But is there a water easement going east and west?
There are no easements running
Drainage
east and west, as far as I know. I'm not aware of any.
So hypothetically speaking, this lot is 183 feet deep.
Mhm.
Typical easements, 25, 30?
My experience, like 10 feet on each
Okay,
side.
so even if that easement were to protrude into this lot and you're taking half of it, you're roughly running in 10, 15 feet. I'm just speaking in generic numbers here. So we still have 165 feet of lot. There's a significant, anything that could be built on that, correct?
Yeah, the setback is probably more than the easement.
Right,
Building
right,
setback.
right. And there's no way that we can tell anybody that they don't have the right to build something if there's not an easement there.
Correct. I think there must have been some miscommunication or something. I don't know.
Okay, sure.
It happened
And
years ago.
I understand that, there's certainly a lot of misinformation sometimes that comes out. And I just, once again, trying to make it, full public knowledge right now that we don't have that ability to say you can't build if there is no easement there.
And there's also a comment made in the public hearing that you can't build a fence over a utility easement. And we actually allow that. It's possible we might not have allowed that one time, but we actually allow it as long as you can
Yeah,
remove the
well, we
fence.
don't really encourage it.
Yeah, as long as you have gates, you can get into it.
Yeah, and we'll probably be revisiting that, but
I will say that while that utility easement is there, the city has always used the lot to access that pole because that easement is not in any condition to get there. And it also overlaps that property owner's driveway, so, just for reference.
Sure, thank you.
thank you, Mike.
Commissioners, any other questions for Clark?
I do want to say on the stormwater, I think Willow is a huge issue for the city as a whole, not just this one block. Stormwater drainage on that is rough. And so I would say I would hate to deny building something when I would say the fault with stormwater drainage lies with the city, with us, because the water is on the roadway. So I would hate to deny a permit to someone to build something when truly it should be our responsibility and time to fix that and get that water away, is my belief. So I definitely understand, like you said, I saw there was 51 vehicles and then 155 at one point, and those blocks are really full. So I do want to say I understand that stormwater drainage, especially along that corridor, is a big concern. But I would hate to deny someone the right to build something when I believe that's our responsibility, not the person building one structure.
Yeah, I will say stormwater is not an issue along that entire corridor. There are certainly several intersections where it's an issue, and that one is especially one of those. So I definitely think some form of stormwater, whether it be a plan, whether it be an analysis, whatever needs to be performed, which is certainly one thing that I suggested in the CUP hearing, was having some form of third-party engineering firm do a stormwater analysis. But, I mean.
And easements are hard. I live on an easement, and you're pushing water towards a person wherever it goes. Easements are tough because there's no drainage. When this was built, whenever your homes would be built in the early 1900s, there's no drainage in your easement, I'm sure. Mine has no drainage. It's just the water runs for 10 houses before it finally gets to a point it gets out. So I think there are other things down the line, I think, that could really ease some of that water burden on these neighborhoods. They definitely won't be easy. But I want to say I share in stormwater issues the same way. So I want that to kind of be understood that
And I
the water
agree,
goes somewhere.
but at some point, you gotta stick something in the revolving circle and stop it and start making improvements. And whether it's here or there, I mean, why not it be here? Why not quit saying that it's okay or that it happens all over and put a stop to it, maybe starting here, or start some new program that starts to alleviate those issues. And
And I
think
would
that's a
love to
bigger
do that in
issue.
my neighborhood and pay it on my property taxes since we're affecting
But
my
I
home.
would say we actually have with the stormwater fee,
Yes.
we have done at least 2 major stormwater
yeah.
improvements, and we're working down the line. If there are more needs than there are money.
Yeah.
And actually, one of those improvements will actually be just a block away from you. In relatively short time on Ash Street. Yeah. And we did the first 7 blocks, we'll do the rest. You'll see it. You'll get the highway, or you'll get the traffic then too.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments for Clark? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Next comment?
Louise Ryan.
Hello.
Hi,
State your name for us, please.
my name is Louise Ryan, R-E-I-N.
How are you?
Not very happy to be sitting here before you today. I apologize. I'm frustrated. So we've owned 803 South Willow for 20 years. At the Planning Commission meeting, I spoke about the emotional aspect of the lifelong change building a duplex in our neighborhood. It is my hope you will investigate that record of that meeting. I would like to reiterate my previous impact statement. When we bought our home, we chose to buy in an established neighborhood with old character and homes that emit personality, leaving passers enchanted with the charm of the early 1900s. A duplex would exhume any charm of our quiet and peaceful street. I want each of you to be vividly aware you are indeed potentially impacting our lives on this block. The property owner doesn't live on our block. He has never visited with any of the neighbors. Please deny this special use permit for a duplex, and thank you for your time.
Commissioners, any questions for Louise? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment?
Nancy, is it Leo?
Leo.
Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Nancy Lehue, and I live at 808 South Willow, which is directly across the street from the northern half of this attached
Single family dwelling.
single-family dwelling.
You can call it a duplex,
A
that's fine.
duplex. My biggest concern is the traffic and parking. Granted, it says you can park on one side of the street. Willow Street from 7th to 9th is the narrowest part of Willow. There's no getting around that. Parking on one side of the street causes real problems. There are none of the neighbors park on the street because they've been hit, they've had near misses, stuff's been stolen out of the cars. A lot of the neighbors have modified their driveways to allow them to get all their cars in. Visitors will park on the street, but residents don't. That is one thing that with this duplex could be a real problem, because even if you're talking 4 residents per side, that's a potential of 4 cars per side, which puts a good chunk of them on the street. That limits access to my driveway somewhat, because you get a truck with a trailer behind it, he's not gonna be able to back out. When we get an emergency vehicle, a city crew, a trash truck, or delivery vehicle temporarily stopped on the west side, when there's cars parked on the east side, it shuts down the whole street. So maybe you can't require them to add more parking, but maybe the city needs to look at making that no parking on either side. The other thing with the stormwater, that needs to be addressed at some point too. There are 2 drainage ditches that will be shut off when this duplex is built. So the existing drainage is going to cease to exist. There's one on each side. We understand that the city needs more rental property, but these duplexes, aren't being built in the new housing developments. And maybe that's because it makes the adjacent housing less desirable. Established neighborhoods should be given that same considerations. We can't value what a developer wants over the issues of the long-term property owner. We've been there a long time, and God willing, we'll be there a lot longer. A duplex at 809 Willow may help serve a temporary need, but it will change our neighborhood forever. So, thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask
Yeah, sure.
Mike? Mike, are there stormwater inlets on the street?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't believe I've seen any on the mid-block.
I can't hear with everybody talking at the same time, so.
I don't believe I've seen any mid-block. There might be at the corners, intersections.
All right.
I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Ryan?
Is there one in front of your house?
There's one in front of our house and one in front of 804.
Okay,
But they pretty much back up, and actually we're going to speak on stormwater at a separate meeting, but.
well,
Yeah.
we will send our crews out to check those stormwater inlets, but, ma'am, did I hear you say they were going away?
Well, there's 2 ditches where the
Okay.
water from both sides you can drain into. Those will go away if they build the duplex as proposed,
Well, the driveway is over the ditches, right?
but the width
Pardon?
of the duplex.
Well, but in there, okay, I'm trying to understand this. Maybe you can bring back
Okay.
information for us too. Because I'm assuming if you're building over a ditch, you're going to require them, or Public Works is going to require them to have a tube underneath that driveway so the water can continue flowing.
I think it's from the easement, east and west.
Okay,
From the easement to the street, correct?
well, we just, okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything on the street
They're
itself.
unofficial ditches.
Yeah, just probably,
They're unofficial.
Right.
Well, we need to just take a closer look at that.
So if you look at the street profile, the ditch is not very deep. I mean, there's not a very deep ditch. I wouldn't even call it ditch really, but there's not a big difference in elevation between the brick street and the top of the curb.
We'll take a closer look at that.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Nancy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Commissioners, do you have any questions for anybody else on item 1?
I guess I would have one if for whoever would like to. What would you guys like to see there?
We
you like.
There's been a
that.
lot, I know duplex has been mentioned a lot, the character of the neighborhood, and I definitely understand. I have a huge heart, and I poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into fixing old houses in Ottawa. So I understand the change in the neighborhood when you don't build a house that matches the feel of the neighborhood. So if you had your dream, what would be there?
We would like for the lot to go back to the original property, but if that is not possible, we have all conceded to a single dwelling home.
However, the new style ranch houses will not fit at all either. It's going to have to be something with a little more character to it. We have a lot of bungalows, we have, it's pretty eclectic, but just a regular old ranch house isn't gonna fit either. So it's going, a single family where there's room to get the cars off the street, give a little character, we're good.
Thank you.
Cal, do you want to speak on behalf of the planning commission about anything? You don't have to, if you don't.
I would just say, I would remind you that we are not governed by emotion. When we make these findings, we're governed by the 13 principles of the Dolan decision, I believe is what it's called. There's 13 findings. We looked at those. We disagreed with the city on 3 of them, and therefore we denied the conditional use permit. And I would just add one thing to the record. We have in the recent past denied a similar permit in another location for Mr. Vander. I appreciate what he does. I appreciate all that he does. But when you have a group of neighbors that oppose it, then you can't give it emotional weight, but you can look at the 13 principles and see if you disagree with any of those based on what the city's staff has done. If you will look at the video of our planning commission meeting, you'll see that that's in fact what happened. And it was a long discussion. It wasn't a short discussion, and we wish Mr. Vander had been there to have some input. But that didn't happen. So that's, and we're fine with whatever you guys decide to do.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So the one that was denied, Third Maple, I wouldn't compare that neighborhood to 8th and Willow.
I'm just
saying.
But for the record, I wanted it to.
Yeah. I don't think it's actually denied. I am pulling the application because I talked to the homeowners, and the city even told me up front, look, I don't know about this one. This is pretty historic, that I don't know,
We'd love to have you send it back to us for our review again. I'd be happy to do that.
What was the address of that one again?
309 or 306 South Willow. Sorry, Maple.
There's a single family house being constructed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, as always, I believe it's probably a good idea that we hold this over for at least, one more meeting. So we'll put it on our agenda for the 27th and have another discussion on it then. You okay with that? That's what we'll do. Thank you. Thank you all for showing up today. We certainly appreciate your comments. We really do. Thank you. That'll move us on to item 2, which is our 2021 audited financial statement. I believe Sean Gordon from Gordon CPA will be on Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Sean Gordon with Gordon CPA. We performed the 2021 audit of the city. Excuse me. So I'll go through the audit report that you've seen in your packets or you've seen previously. And we'll start with pages 1 through 3 of the audit report. And starting out, this is called the Independent Auditors Report. This is a little bit different from what you've seen over the past few years. There was a reorganization, kind of a reformatting required by the state for this section. So the opinion paragraph, the auditor's opinion paragraph used to be towards the bottom. It's now towards the top. They figured out that the most important paragraph should be not buried deep, but towards the top there. So you'll see the third paragraph down is titled the Unmodified Opinion on Regulatory Basis of Accounting. And that is just kind of a wordy way of saying that the highest and cleanest opinion that we could give the city for the 2021 calendar year, we did give the city for that calendar year. So it reflects very well on the financial and internal control management of the city's finances and financial statements for that time frame. Further on down in this section, we talk about the responsibilities of management and the commission for these financial statements. And then we cover our responsibilities for conducting an audit of the city's financial statements. Flipping forward to page 4, this is called the Summary Statement of Receipts, Expenditures, and Unencumbered Ending Cash. Here you'll see in the left-hand column all of the funds of the city, and then beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and then ending cash. You'll see at the bottom right-hand column there, the total cash on hand of the city and the library as well as of 12/31/2021. Flipping forward, the next big section is pages 5 through 13. This is called the notes to the financial statements. And here we discuss quite a bit of information, including accounting policies of the city, long-term debt information, involvement in the Capers retirement program, ongoing capital projects of the city, many items, as I said. On page 11, we kind of discuss the long-term debt of the city, and about halfway down the page, it discusses the 2 bond issuances that were passed by the City Commission in 2021. So a little bit of information, expanded information on those bond issuances is discussed there. And then the final section forward in the audit report is pages 14 through 42. These are just more detailed breakouts of those funds that were presented on page 4. Most of these pages have a comparison to the prior year, which was 2020. And then there's also a comparison to how that fund performed compared to the budget that was adopted for 2021 for that specific fund as well. There were no budget violations for 2021, so the budget process was handled well by the city staff as well. We had a good audit this year with Richard and Melanie and Rebecca. They took care of us and got us all the information that we needed. So again, it was a good, clean audit, and they took good care of us. We had one audit recommendation this year, and it was over some sales tax that was paid on some credit card transactions. We've spoken with Melanie about that, and I believe that process is going to be looked at a little bit deeper by Melanie and Rebecca for the next audit that we'll perform in March of 2023. So if you have any questions on any of that, please let me know.
I just have a question. I don't know if it's more of a comment or maybe your opinion, but I've often wondered if we're drowning in liquidity. We have a lot of money in our checking, and I know we're in the process of getting money put into CDs and the Kansas Municipal Investment Pool. But do you ever have an opinion as to how much liquidity do we really need on any given day?
Not necessarily. I don't think there's really any guidance. There's some guidance by the Government Finance Officers Association on how much cash to have on hand, liquid and non-liquid. But they don't really have a liquidity measure that I'm familiar with. But I think anytime you can invest kind of some of your free cash into KMIP or CDs or anything like that, that's going to earn a little bit more money. That's a good idea to look into.
Commissioners, any other questions for Sean? Okay. Once again, I believe since this is our first time seeing it, we should probably put it on our agenda for next Monday. Is that okay with everybody? That's what we'll do. Sean, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That moves us on to item 3, which is consulting services agreement and moderate income housing, MIH grant application and administration. And our city manager and our director Hall will talk to us about that.
Well, thank you, commissioners. I told Mike I would give you a little bit of history about why we're here and why we're using Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission. And specifically, Mrs. Gailmore, as most of you recall, over the past, I would say 5 to 7 years, we've had a number of grant programs, housing programs funded through the state. One program that comes to mind is We did it with ECAN when Richard Jackson was chair. Most recently, we had COVID. Grant funds and loan funds, much like FCDC did, or the county had, that FCDC helped them with. And we drew upon Mrs. Gailmore's experience with the Regional Planning Commission to help make application for those and to administer those, both the county and the city. So over the years, we've relied upon our expertise. And that's to make sure it's done right, make sure that all the paperwork is filed on time and the right paperwork is filed. The middle income housing program, the MIH program, which has been restructured and is new by this legislature. We will be able to make our first application sometime in August, and it will be due in September 27th. With the projects that we have going on and the, I will say, newness of the staff we have in the two departments, and because we know that Mrs. Gailmore is a certified grant administrator, what we are recommending to you that you eventually approve this contract, and it's broken up into two parts. One of them is that she will help us, assist us in putting the application together for submittal between now and September 27th on a MIH project that you approve. And I might say that you need to get ready because you will be involved in the selection of the project that you will submit to the state. And we'll talk about that later. If we are funded, then the second part of the contract is that through the Regional Planning Commission, Mrs. Gailmore will be the administrator of that grant. And what that means is we make sure we have the proper paperwork. She will be familiar with what the state requirements are. They will get not fired, but filed. A little Freudian slip there. Filed. She will help us with any public hearings we have to have, and any at the beginning, and any public hearings we have to have at the end. And as some of you remember, there are times when we have to have a public hearing to close out the grant. So that's our recommendation. I told Mike I'd give a short intro, so it's a little bit longer now.
Director Hall, do you have anything to add?
No, if there are any questions about the grant program, we have a early draft of an RFP. RFP is going to be issued July 7th, I think it is, early July. So we're going to be ready as we can be when that happens. So part of that is soliciting projects from developers.
What's the timeline on this? We're thinking that, and I know that you've just seen a draft of it, but what kind of timeline are we looking for this the MIH grant to?
So there's going to be an RFP that's issued, a final version of the RFP, July 7th.
By the state of Kansas Commerce Department,
Yeah.
the housing.
Yeah, Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. And then we need to work pretty steadily to solicit projects. And then there's going to be a selection process that you will be involved in, right?
Yeah, and you will actually issue, we will draft an RFP for you to look at, and I would anticipate that you will issue the RFP.
Yeah, and so then the application deadline is September 30. So a lot of what's going to happen, I think, that's going to involve you will probably be August and early September, I would think.
Because we're never busy
Well,
at that time.
let us not get locked in the dates because it's pretty fluid on this. We're trying to understand the program. Now, you might say, how do we make sure that our developers, our housing developers are familiar with this? Well, we're working with FCDC under Paul's leadership. We're going to be inviting down the executive director of the housing, of the housing department that handles this, to explain this program to builders that want to hear about it, and other programs that that are offered by the state also. So we're trying to make more awareness. We're trying to reach out. So
And it's similar to what the Prairie Fire in the north end of town. But it's okay. Gotcha.
that was an MIH grant.
And just to add, so there are 3 rounds anticipated right now. The one I just described is the first round, and they're gonna do it again. Another RFP, another deadline, I think that's January, and then another RFP, a deadline in May.
Is this being housed under CDBG?
No. And no.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions for our city manager or Director Hall?
No?
Looks good.
We'll put you out of the hot seat.
Your introduction took a little bit
Yeah.
longer than it was really supposed to. I mean, that would just be maybe your comment.
I know.
I mean, I'm just saying, maybe next time, can we get the timer out?
All right, I can shorten that next week. We'll let somebody else do it.
You're certainly not needing any action or anything today,
Oh, no,
correct?
we don't
Okay,
need-
just an overview at this point.
It's an overview, and what we are hoping is that you will put it on the July 6th agenda for action.
Commissioners, do you feel like you need to discuss it again, maybe at the 27th meeting? We do not have a July 4th meeting, so that would be the only meeting between now and our
We would discuss on the 27th and
yeah, if you wanted
possible
to discuss
movement to the
it.
6th.
Yes, if you wanted to discuss it again, we could do it on the 27th and then possible movement, like Commissioner Kaler said, to the 6th. You okay with
I
that?
think so.
We'll do it that. We'll move it to we'll move it on to the 27th agenda for rediscussion if necessary.
And I might also tell you, you might ask where we're going to pay for these funds out of. In consultation with the Director of Finance, we will take it out of our Economic Development Fund.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Stay there, Director Hall.
That's it.
Item 4, this is an ordinance
mic show.
vacating setback lines and pedestrian easements, final plat of the coves at Tallgrass Phase 1.
Okay, so you might want to use the timer on this one.
Minute and a half.
Okay.
No 3 minutes here.
But this one does require some explanation. It's
Sure.
potentially confusing, so I'll walk through it here. So our subdivision regulations provide for someone to request vacation of easements. It also provides for the vacation of setback lines and provides the process for that. The applicant in this case is the Coves of Tallgrass LLC, and Cal Lantis represents the owner for this one. Coves of Tallgrass LLC, they own more than 20 lots in the coves. They don't own all the lots. And so you're gonna look at a map and you're gonna think, well, why are we only vacating part of that? And that's because you can't request vacation on somebody else's lot unless they provide permission or they're a party to it. And so that's why. So one thing before I forget, well, I'll get to it. So this is the exhibit provided by the applicant. The red lines, the lots with the red lines shown through them, those are the setback lines that are subject to the request. And so if this is approved, those will be vacated. And then there's a green line right there, and that's a pedestrian easement, and there's an existing sidewalk right there. One thing I'll also point out is the city owns these 2 lots, and the city owns this tract B right here. The city also owns that. There's a pedestrian easement and an existing pedestrian sidewalk here. That is not being requested to be vacated. The applicant didn't feel that that needed to happen for those lots. This is an exhibit that we created, staff created. So the ones that have blue polygons around them, those are city-owned. The ones that have green lines around them, the lots with green lines around them, the houses have already been built. There is a house that's been built here. It's just, this is another aerial photo. This is a fenced lot that belongs to one of the owners over here. It actually belongs to this property owner. And then the pedestrian easement, you can see it here. And then all these other lots right here, here, and here are the setback lines that are being requested to be vacated.
Is there any reason why that was drawn that way? Mike, it seems like it goes right into halfway through the lot with the intention to build the houses back deep in the lots, or what was that?
So this was a plat that was done quite a while ago, I'd say around 2005, 2006. It was for a certain type of concept.
Okay.
Relatively dense housing, kind of an unusual, very unusual setback lines. Typically setback lines are the same distance all on the frontage, 30 feet. And usually they reflect what's in the zoning code for the most part. These don't. And I'm going to show you a few slides that demonstrate that. So the recommendation by the Planning Commission upon getting a recommendation from staff is that they be vacated, and that, I'm going to show this in a minute, but where there is a sidewalk that's on private property, most sidewalks in a typical subdivision are in the right of way. They're not on private property. In this case, some of the sidewalks cross private property, but they're in a pedestrian easement, so a public easement. But typically they're in the street right of way. So I showed you those lots earlier that aren't part of the request to be vacated. The pedestrian easement's not being vacated. This first condition would require that there be a 20-foot driveway behind the sidewalk, so people aren't blocking the driveway. That's something that when they met with staff, I asked them to include that, and they agreed to do that. The other thing, I'm going to show you where the sidewalk, that existing sidewalk is, or be vacated. This second condition makes sure there's not a gap in the sidewalk, that we're not left with a gap. And so that's what that second condition is. Okay, so this is why there's a need for this. So if you look at lot 17 as an example, this is one of the lots with the deepest setback lines. So the setback on the west lot line right here is about 70 feet, and this is about 65 feet. So a typical setback is 20. The rear setback for this lot is 15 feet, side setback is 5 feet. So what this leaves us with is a building envelope. Building envelope is the area where you can build a building, only about 35 feet wide and 45 feet deep. So it's quite restrictive unless the setback lines are vacated. Here's another example. This is a wedge-shaped lot. The setback line is not particularly deep into the lot, but it would normally be absent the setback line. In this under this particular zoning, it's a certain type of, it's called housing opportunity zoning overlay. It's an overlay district. The front setback is 20 feet if it's a garage. So this will help to have this setback line vacated. In this case, given the setback line that's on there now and the rear setback and the side setback, you're left with a triangular shaped building envelope that's approximately 15 feet wide at the rear, 57 feet wide at the front, and 8 feet front to back. So it's pretty restrictive. So pedestrian easement. So this is a photo looking from the west. That's Blue Stem Lane in the foreground. This is the pedestrian easement that's not proposed to be vacated. You can see the houses that are in construction there. So this is a view looking, this is using the fire department's drone. Thank you, fire department. Takes very good photos. This is the pedestrian easement that's shown on the diagram on the exhibit that is to be vacated. And you can see that sidewalk that runs to the kind of to the left, to the down and left. That's in tract B of the city's property. So this will explain how this is going to happen. So the way this will work is the builder will start building the homes. They'll get a permit for the homes. They'll start construction. Then they can demo the existing sidewalk. And then prior to getting a certificate of occupancy, they would be required to put in the sidewalk. Keep in mind that these lots are not owned by the owner. These are owned by the city. So it's a little unusual, but they have agreed, the owner has agreed that they would put in this sidewalk to close this gap before they get the CO for their homes. So again, the recommendation is approval for all lots affected by the vacation. Any park, stalls, or drives will have a length of 20 feet or more beyond the sidewalk to prevent cars and trucks from blocking the public sidewalk. And this very long note number 2 explains how what I just explained with the sidewalk and how they would, so in other words, they would not remove the existing sidewalk across lots 26 and 31 and tract B until issued a building permit for construction of homes. And then by the time they get a CO, they would have to install that full length of sidewalk to connect. I don't think I left anything out except just in case there's, I think I mentioned it, but just because there's not a setback line on a plat does not mean there's a required setback. It'll defer to the zoning, and there is a front setback required by the zoning.
So Mike, how do we prevent this in the future? Because we have a couple of others that want to change their setbacks on the plat.
So our subdivision regulations require setback lines on a plat. I think that's unwieldy to deal with because if someone has some kind of hardship where they want to request a variance to the BZA to remove a setback line, the BZA does not have the authority to amend a plat. So it has to go to the governing body to vacate that setback line. So I think one thing we can do is maybe look at our subdivision regulations and really see if there really is a need for setback lines on plats. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, because as you recall, when this first came up, I made the statement, I think this probably is a perfect example of why we should not.
Yeah, and one thing I did fail to mention is one reason that you have this request for vacation setback lines is that another way of doing this is to do a replat. And in fact, I think it was Slade Vandeventer who replatted 2 lots at Wilson and Elderberry to change the setback line, but he had 2 lots. So in this owner's case, they have all these lots that aren't contiguous with one another. They'd have to file 4 replats probably to do what they're trying to accomplish with the vacation of the setback lines.
But the point is, there should be some greater flexibility for staff and or the commission to take care of these situations, and it may be changing in our regulations and our ordinances how we do it.
So are there some other landowners that may be coming before us to ask for the same request that aren't yet?
That could happen. So the other point, a very important point I think needs to be made here is one of the requirements of one of the findings of a vacation is that we provided proper notice to the public and to affected property owners. So really, I think we went above and beyond what was required. Every owner within this subdivision was notified. Everyone within 200 feet on the adjacent properties were notified. In addition to that, at our recommendation, the applicant conducted an open house at the downtown office, invited those same people, and we have not had one expression of opposition or concern. I had a question about it, and I was very surprised by that, because the people that live out there, they do ask questions about other issues that come up, like mowing and things like that. But so really, there hasn't been any controversy or opposition to this to date.
And the planning commission was 4-0 for it, the vacation.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Skidmore, just as a question to what you just asked, do you mean for the coves?
Yeah.
Will anybody else be coming to vacate any easements? Now, coves of tall grass, they're asking for all the vacations they want, right? Okay, at this point, correct? So the only, what do we have left? 2 lots that it's another builder? Not Slade's, because he's already started his. Ogle's already started his.
We have 5 lots that were sold to individuals, and they have not started construction
Okay,
yet.
so,
But most
okay.
of those lots they bought those lots because they did not need setback
Right,
changes.
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
They bought the premier lots.
So it could, but at this point, we probably don't see anybody else coming to ask for any kind of vacations of setbacks or anything.
I don't think so. I think there are a total of 4 lots that we've not issued permits for them yet. No structure's been built for on those lots, and those are not owned by the applicant.
Cal, is Coves of Tallgrass the same developer that built the first two houses that are already built?
Go ahead.
Please.
For the record, Cal Landis, I am the planning chair, but I did recuse myself from the discussion on the codes and actually spoke as the applicant and left the DS before they had the vote or any discussion. So, yes, this is sort of a convoluted thing. The Coves of Tallgrass is the developer. Currently, they have an agreement with Grand Builders to build the 28 houses. So when we speak of the Coves of Tallgrass, that's the people who owns the lot. When we speak of Grand Builders, they'll be the people buying the lots and building the houses from, and they're totally separate entities. But they're the ones that made the agreement. Grand Builders is the one that made the agreement with the Coves of Tallgrass on the sidewalk and subsequently with the city. So.
Thank you for the clarification. And the reason I'm asking this question is because Grand Builders contracted me out as an electrician for the first two houses. So for transparency purposes, I just want everybody to know that at this point, no, I have not been contacted for the remainder of houses,
Right.
but there's a possibility that I could be. So I just want to be completely transparent that, you know, if I even make that decision, that you know, I'm letting the public know that there's a possibility of some conflict. I could recuse myself if I felt necessary, but just making everything, putting it out on the table.
And precisely the same thing, I may represent Grand Builders in the sale of the houses, so I have no monetary interest in either Grand Builders or the Coves of Tallgrass, so. I think the only other thing, I'd be happy to give you, if she'd not set the timer, I'd be happy to give you the history of covalinear design as it started in Minnesota and as it's now practiced in Colorado and Utah, but I don't think you probably, Mike, that might be a discussion over a couple of hours.
Yeah, long,
I didn't
big
bring
cup of
I didn't bring
coffee.
a pillow or a blanket, so I'm gonna have to.
Look, I know they're steaming already about what I've let go on today, so.
But we have, but we started this in the transition. I just want to add this real quickly. We started this in the transition. We started with a variance and found out that that's not possible because of the mechanisms that Director Hall's told you about. Then we looked at we looked at replats, and a replat for one parcel was going to be $11,000. We had to have 5. Director Hall, in his learning the job, read through the vacations and found out that in fact you could vacate a front setback. So that makes it less onerous on the city, it makes it less onerous on the developer, and subsequently will make it less onerous on the builder. And we can bring the houses to market quicker in a time when we need housing desperately. So, thank you guys for your consideration on this. If you're gonna move it forward, I'll make sure I attend all the meetings in case you have any further questions.
Yes, make sure he's here next week.
Yeah.
I'll be here next week if it's on the agenda.
And Mike, like you said, the vacating is of the platted, but it goes back to zoning, so it's still our standard setback is basically what it reverts to.
Yeah.
It reverts to the setbacks required by zoning, correct?
Yeah, our standard setbacks will always be the standard. I was gonna say trump card, but anyway, standard. Will always be the standard, even if they are not on.
If I may, the builder has agreed that if in the right of way, if the sidewalk is 2.5 feet from the edge of the lot line, and there's in the HO, in the residential to housing opportunity overlay, it's only 15 feet setback, so that would be a total of 17.5 feet. He's agreed to move the house back 20 feet so it meets the director's desire, not what's in code, but the director's desire. So there's 20 feet of off-street parking. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for either Cal or Director Hall? How would you like to move forward on this one? Would you like to hold it over for next week?
Moving on to the agenda.
Yeah, I would be fine moving it on. We're reverting back to, I think, our standard zoning. You know, reverting back to what makes more sense out there for the spaces.
Right.
Another 2 weeks, just pushing back housing.
Is it delaying any construction at this point?
At this point, no.
Okay. I'm in favor with Commissioner Kaler, Commissioner Graves. I think we always try to look it over twice. I know that the close proximity residents were certainly informed of it, not that, it would affect anybody else around, but certainly if there's any input from the public, I'd certainly like to hear that. But I'd be okay with putting it on for 27th, and I mean, either way, it's not gonna go on till our 6th agenda anyway, so.
And you could make the presentation to Commissioner Skidmore at that time.
I'll be happy to. You want
Just Commissioner Skidmore.
How about 3:30?
Light bulb in the room.
All right, we'll do that. We'll move it on to next week's agenda. Thank you. That'll move us on to comments by our city manager. Thank you, Director Hall.
All right, Commissioners, I have two things. Director Landis will give you a short update on where we're at with the ARMA projects, and then ARPA, not ARMA.
Hold on, hey, slow down.
Alma,
We got
Arma.
it.
And Chief Weingartner will give you a short update on a couple of situations that happened over the weekend.
Okay, well, I will keep this short and sweet, but I wanted to just give you a quick update. We did, I guess for those watching, ARPA is the Rescue Plan Act that we received, that the city of Ottawa received 1.8 million roughly in funds that were to be used for a specific purpose. We did in April elect to go with the revenue loss allowance, which allows us a little more broader scope to be able to use those funds for public use and or public projects that are going to benefit our community. We did receive our second allocation. If you remember, we were supposed to get the second in July. We got that last week, and to date, you have reviewed 4 initial uses of the dollars. We haven't actually moved forward with any one of those yet. One of the things that we're trying to get in place is an update to our purchasing policy to make sure that we can ensure that we're in compliance with all of the requirements for the request for proposals that would go along with any one of these things or any of the future projects that you might approve use of those funds for. It's just taken us a little bit longer to get to that point, but we are, and in fact, your directors that have these first 4 projects are pretty much ready to go when we get that done. So our plan is to bring back to you in probably late July or early August, the next set of conversation, I think, about the next use of funds potentially. We have some ideas. I know we had an initial list that we brought to you, and I think we have some additional ideas to bring to you to either add or replace some of those initial thoughts that we had that might be of benefit or greater benefit to the community. So do you have questions for me? I think that was really all the short update I wanted to provide.
Commissioners, any questions for Director Landis? Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Want to give you some information on one incident from over the weekend, and then another matter that's still developing, but does have an impact on police operations. The first one is in the early hours of Saturday morning, so Friday night into Saturday morning, just before 1 a.m., officers were dispatched to a bar in the 1600 block South Main for a fight in progress. Prior to their arrival, the call was updated by dispatch of multiple shots fired. When the officers arrived, they determined that a identified suspect discharged a 9mm handgun in the air 11 times outside of the parking lot with at least a dozen people in the parking lot. We have many witnesses that we interviewed that night, and likely because of the circumstances behind the event, some may have fled before we got there. We were able to identify a suspect that evening. Later that morning, the subject did come to the police department and was subsequently arrested and issued a ticket to appear in the Ottawa Municipal Court for unlawful discharge of a firearm within the city limits. We did put a press release about that incident for public awareness. Certainly several purposes behind that. One is, I know for a fact that prior to even the press release going out, a lot of information was already shared on social media. It was already out on TikTok. It was already out on some of those other social media apps similar. So in order to get a consistent message, we want to be the place where people go to get the facts on such a dangerous situation. So that's why we did that. In that press release, I talked about what our officers do to check drinking establishments, so bars, taverns in Ottawa. It's something we've done for my full career here, and we'll continue to do that. And the purpose is not to pick on a particular location or a particular business owner, it's to keep the community and the patrons safe. We just happened to be in this bar 1 hour before this incident happened. At that time, there wasn't any indication that something like this could happen, but that's why we go, because you just never know. And certainly in this case, an hour later, we're back there to do that. We do have some more work to do on the case. We do have detectives assigned to follow up some additional information. I am reaching out to the owner of the business to set up a meeting to bring him in and discuss this matter to alleviate any of his concerns and answer any questions that he might have that I can do to just further explain why we do the checks, why we're going to continue to do those checks, and the importance behind that. There's too many recent examples around the country of open air active shooter events to not take this serious. We are so lucky that no one was injured in this incident. I'm shocked and surprised, pleasantly pleased that that happened. But anyone that was in that parking lot that didn't feel like they were in danger, come talk to me, and I'll have a different conversation with that. And I'm hoping that after seeing the media release, hearing some of the information that follows on with this conversation we're having today, that maybe somebody will have a little bit of a second thought and understand how close they really were, Chief, to losing their life.
All people have to remember is that little girl who was doing nothing wrong up in Kansas City several years ago that was killed by a random shooting in the air.
Absolutely, yeah. So before moving on to the second topic, I'd be happy to answer any questions or other information that you can. Certainly, I can't speak specifically to certain parts of it since it is still an ongoing active criminal investigation.
Well, I certainly appreciate you coming here and telling the people that are watching and the people that are here, because I was questioned the next day and there was a lot of misinformation for sure. So you coming here and stating the facts is much appreciated from me for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the second matter is the Franklin County Juvenile Detention Center. I just left a meeting to come to this one about what we're going to do because several weeks ago, the Franklin County Commission voted to close the Juvenile Detention Center. When that vote was made, that really triggered a lot of unanswered questions from the police department. The Juvenile Detention Center in Franklin County serves what's called the 4th Judicial District, of which Franklin County is one of 4 counties in that. The Ottawa Police Department is the largest municipal police department in that 4th Judicial District, and because of that, we likely have a lot more business than some of the other entities to the Juvenile Detention Center. So it impacts a lot of what we're going to do with juvenile offenders. I don't have all the answers yet. We're still working through some of that, but I just want the public and the community to know that if the need is there to detain or hold a juvenile offender accountable, we do have the ability and the plans in place to do that. We still have some report flows and kind of process changes on how we're going to handle that. But the reality is this, for the local police officer, it's going to take them more time away from the streets patrolling, more time to do that, because we are going to be transporting juveniles that are held to another county. That county is yet to be identified. The information we got today is that could be Douglas County Juvenile Detention or Johnson County Juvenile Detention. Either way, that's a minimum of 2 hours that we're going to take 1 or 2 people away from the streets to transport juveniles that we hold. And that is an unanticipated impact on our operations. And certainly when you have overtime, wear and tear, fuel costs, those are all considerations we have to do. And I won't speak for the sheriff on his operations, but after we arrest a juvenile, transport them to a detention facility, and let's say they do have to appear back in person in district court, the sheriff's office is now going to pick up the transportation of said juveniles for each of those in-person hearings that needs to take place. So there's still some additional cost that the sheriff is going to incur for that. We do at times, although very few, issue municipal court warrants for juveniles for certain offenses, for example, traffic offenses. So if you write a speeding ticket to an underage or to a juvenile, they fail to appear, the judge can issue a municipal court warrant for their arrest. When we serve that, we hold them in a juvenile detention facility. Because that's a municipal court warrant, that is a municipal court prisoner. That means we would anticipate or have maybe some additional medical expenses that could be incurred, transportation back to city court that could occur, instead of just going over literally less than a block away than where we are now. So I'm not pleased about that decision. I'm not pleased that I wasn't given an opportunity to provide input prior to that decision being made. But I can't control that now. What I can control is how we respond and how we move forward, and that's what I'm going to do. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Do you have information on what the kind of, I guess, census was for the center? Like how many people were there on an average basis, or?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers. I know some of those reports were produced at one of the meetings, but this is really a result of some of the juvenile justice law changes that were made several years ago, where the goal was to keep less children in detention facilities and have other ways to manage those. And certainly because of COVID, we saw a huge reduction in the number of people, both in the adult and the juvenile setting, that were held or sent to court. We still have court cases that haven't even worked through from COVID yet, and that backlog is still going to continue. And because of many of those reasons, they were holding far fewer juveniles in detention for longer periods of time, and that became a financial decision that the county made to close that. Another follow-on is they closed the day school. The day school was where certain juvenile offenders, instead of missing out on education, got to attend school. And certain kids on behavior plans that were not in the regular classroom got to go and attend school at the day school at the juvenile detention center. Those children will now be back in some type of a classroom in a facility, a school, USD 290 school, and I would anticipate that the SRO has an increase in calls for service like we saw before the day school was implemented.
Commissioners, any other questions for Chief? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Chief, any other thing?
I do not, Mayor.
Thank you. That'll move us on to comments by our city commissioners. Commissioner Graves?
Since the police department got their minute here. I'll give the fire department some time. I was just gonna say, it was kind of a cool opportunity, but the fire department on June 27th, 28th, and 29th, they're going to be doing a boat operations training in conjunction with Overland Park Fire Technical Rescue Team. They're going to be training on the river, I believe near Second Street Dam, on rescuing victims in moving bodies of water. So that was kind of a cool opportunity for them. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaler.
None at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Clayton.
I want to say I had the opportunity to attend the Lost and Found youth organization event that was at City Park this weekend, and was fortunate enough to witness Mayor Crowley get dunked a few times
Yeah, you're gonna need to stay.
in a tank of water. I may have been a
How
part of
much
one of
did you
those.
pay?
Accidentally. I think the mechanism broke. It was faulty, but did get to see him dunked a few times, and that was a cool thing to see, which it's kind of in line with the Juvenile Detention Center closing, so kind of an interesting turn, kind of events of youth in need, and kind of an interesting, kind of segue for the stuff that Weingunner mentioned as well, so.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Skibble.
Maybe they'll move that out to the Second Street Dam so they can rescue you this time. That might be a good idea, plan it, but no comment.
Thank you. I too will mention the Lost and Found Youth Organization, the event they put on Saturday. It was a good time. I was dunked about 40 times. I believe most of them were cheating, quite honestly. The good thing about it is most of the people that were dunking me were underage, so I'm not concerned about the voter turnout next year. So that's good. And I do want to mention to the commissioners, I appreciate your patience today, I really do. I know this is a study session, but I'm a big believer that when anybody comes in to make a public comment, that I give them their due diligence for sure. So I know it took a little longer. I even wrote down, I think the item 1 took 48 minutes. I'm sure the rest of you probably wrote down the same thing, and I apologize for that, but I think it's the right thing to do. So, and I will probably continue to do the same thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Other than that, I have no other comments. Announcements, we have our study session June 27th at 4 p.m. We have a canceled July 4th study session, and then we have our regular meeting at 7 p.m. on July 6th. Is there anything else to come between, in front of the commission of that? I'll adjourn.